keep going, don't
I think
prepare
I
the
just
first
saw Superman. Actually, it may have been a bird. No, I'm thinking it could have honestly been a plane. I'd like you all to come take a look though. See what we can see out here. Because I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing in the shapes. Shapes in the sky. Our few shapes that we have. Where is it, Izzy? Seeing what we can see over here. These don't look directly in the sun. We've got some over here. Shade. I'm not sure exactly what they're looking like yet. We've got a couple of them out here. Oh, sorry, I don't have to keep up with you. We've got some, but I guess we've got to get to the bottom of this. So we can head back inside. We'll sit down, think about the shapes that you saw just now, if you saw any besides maybe like a bean. That's a lot of the shapes that they're looking like right now. First, we should kind of get to the bottom of what they are and what makes the clouds, right? So I've got some elevations here for the levels. We've got a high level, we've got a middle level, and we've got a low level on the clouds, and that's going to be where they're forming. And so I've got it here in feet. We've got the surface to about 7,000 feet. Is going to be about your low level, and you may think, great, that's wonderful. I don't know how tall 7,000 feet is. That means nothing to me. What I've got down here is the Empire State Building, and that's about 1,250 feet. And that's going to be a middle level skyscraper, not the tallest, but you're getting up into that middle to lower part of the low level. And then for our middle level, I've got the top of Mount Everest here, which is our tallest mountain in the world. And that's sitting at roughly around 29,000 feet. So we're anywhere between the middle and the high level, which is why you're going to see some clouds above it, as well as some clouds below it. And then we've got our high level here, and that's going to be around 16 to 43,000 feet. So there's a little bit of overlap between the middle and the high level, but your planes are going to be cruising at about 42,000 feet. So there's only about one type of cloud that's higher than that 42,000 feet, which is why when you're in a plane, most of the time, you're above the clouds. When we think about how a cloud forms, besides the levels, we've got a couple of key words here that'll cue you in. We've got nimbus, which is going to mean rain. So when you're seeing cumulonimbus, you're going to think rain in the forecast. I've also got stratus here, which is going to mean layer, and that's going to be your lower level clouds. So when you think of your stratus, it's going to be more like a pancake. You usually have them in stacks. They're layered. The clouds that we're seeing right here are going to be those stratus, those lower clouds. They're the bottom of the stack. And as you get higher, you've got these cumulus clouds. And cumulus often means convection, which means it's bubbling up, which is going to be your thunder clouds, which are the ones that have those high, billowy mountaintops. And those are going to look more like muffins or cupcakes. So that's a little bit of an easy way to decipher those for you. We've got these different levels here that go along with the levels. So it'll be cirrus is going to be your tall level. Alto, for some reason, is in the middle, even though usually it's lower. But the cloud world has decided alto is the middle. And stratus is going to be our lower level. So I've got a handout here with some of the common clouds that you'll see. So you can easily identify them yourself, and they're on the layers. And so you can see these cumulonimbus clouds on the side are going to be multiple layered clouds. So they'll stretch anywhere from the ground all the way up into that high level. But the rain usually just comes from that low level at the bottom. So I've got some different types of clouds here to show you and to kind of place in the right spots. And I'll walk around with them. So I've got these tall, wispy ones. These are going to be your high-level cirrus clouds. And Abby actually told me that they're seriously pulled apart, which is an easy way to remember these. They're super thin and wispy. There's going to be those ones that are at that high level. There'll be the top ones, usually pretty see-through. They're not blocking much of the sun. As opposed to the lower stratus clouds, they're going to block about 80% of the sun if they're a real thick layer of cloud. But these higher clouds are only going to block around 20%. So put these guys right up here. And then we've got these middle clouds here, which are more of your bubbly clouds. They can sometimes be a bit lower. Those are going to be your alto cumulus clouds. Yeah, real popcorn looking ones almost. So these won't often carry a lot of water, and they won't block a lot of sun. But if there's more precipitation in the air, they can get larger and they'll drop into that lower level, and they'll be able to produce rain. I've got a couple of pretty cool ones. These are going to be the tallest clouds recorded, and they actually do glow. They're called noctilucent clouds. And they're not on here, they're pretty rare. We've only got a couple of sightings, and they're caused by human pollutants in the air. They actually glow from what they're picking up in the atmosphere. Kind of like the bioluminescence that you'll see off some of the shores with the glowing microbes. And usually those are seen at higher latitudes in the world as well. So these are going to be way up there. I've got another pretty cool one here. And it's called a lenticular cloud. And it happens when there's some really cool air movement, where there's a lot of air coming up from the bottom as well as coming down from the top. So it pushes it out, and it looks either like a UFO, it kind of looks like a lentil, which is going to be a beam. It's kind of got that UFO or lentil shape to it. This is lenticular. So it looks kind of funny. Super strange. I think it looks like a UFO more than it does a beam. And those don't happen very often. They can often be confused. These are going to be in your middle to high level because they'll often also form over mountain ranges. And these can also be called lenticular clouds, but usually they're called cap clouds. And these happen when air is forced up from the valley up over the mountain, and there's already some air force coming down. Same thing with the lenticular, but it happens over these mountain ranges. It looks like a nice little hat or a saucer on top of the mountain. We've got a couple more, and then we can go on and find our own. So these are going to be, again, at that middle to high level range because they're going to be forming over mountain tops. These you'll usually see when there's a storm coming. They're called mammatus clouds, and they kind of look like mammal udders, which is why they're called mammatus. And these often mean there's a lot of turbulence going on in the air, and you should probably get inside because there's going to be some high winds, it's going to be a lot of rain, could even be some hail. are not flat on the bottom. These are going to be your middle to low level because they'll often carry water in them. I've got these two others I'll walk around with. We've got fog, which is going to be either surface or just above the surface and in valleys. And then we've got our popular cumulonimbus, which is going to, you can see it actually reaching the top of one of those atmospheric levels and kind of getting flattened out. Often when it gets flattened out at the top, it's called an anvil. And it's super flat, but it's super billowy underneath. And fog will actually rise from the ground up when it starts to dissipate, as opposed to from the cloud down like most other precipitation happens. Clouds here. We've kind of got a good little bit of a base knowledge. You've got the handout so you can find your own. We're going to take a quick stop over at the weather station, which I'm not sure many of you know about. I really didn't know about it until I had it pointed out to me one time. So I'll leave this up at the end too for anybody who wants to come up and re-see those pictures. But we're going to go just on a short little walk here, and we'll go right to the weather station, and then we'll be off to the lake. We've got our wonderful environmental monitoring station here, and it's rigged up with all the cool stuff. And you can actually track any of the live and archived data on the UW Stevens Point weekly homepage. And I looked at it, and last year, this day, it was about the same temperature, 55, 56 degrees, but we did get a couple inches of rain. And there was a bit more wind than there is today. So this wonderful machine weathers everything from soil temperature to air temperature. It measures leaf wetness, precipitation, UV rays, the atmospheric pressure. And I'm sure there's one or two other things, but you can check all of that live data. I think it's pretty cool. So if you need to do any research or just interested to see what it was like a couple of years ago on this certain day, you totally can. We're going to be walking to the lake now. It's a bit of a farther walk, but as we're walking, I want you to think about a story that you knew when you were younger, or one of your favorite stories now, and just kind of think about that. And if you can, look up at clouds without falling or tripping over your feet, which I really cannot do. Go ahead and look up at the clouds as we're walking. We'll head over to the lake. So I asked you to think about maybe some stories that you heard in your youth or something recently that you heard. Has anybody thought of anything they're waiting to share? Any good stories? Doesn't even have to do with clouds. It could be whatever you would like. That's okay. I'm thinking of stories. I really like all the Aesop's fables. Those are some of the ones that I remember the most from when I was younger. I do have a little reading here, and I could use some volunteers if anybody would like to help me read a story. Abby? Anybody else? Yeah? You want to do it?
Do they have to know how to read?
Mom help.
Mom can help.
I'll do this one.
I said that little guy down there wants to do it too. Okay.
Here we go. Let's see.
Surprising.
I got this one.
Maybe
that one there? You've got the last one. Remember read 4? Otherwise I can read 4. It's no problem. I can read 1 together. No, I think you read very well. It's fine. So this story is called The Cloud, and it's a little folk tale. So we'll kick it off with number 1.
One hot summer morning, a little cloud floated lightly and happily across the blue sky. Far below lay the earth, brown, dry, and desolate from drought. The little cloud could see the poor people of the earth working and suffering in the hot fields, while she herself floated on the morning breeze without a care. Oh, if I could only help the poor people down there, she thought. They look so wearied and tired. If I could but make their work easier, or give the hungry ones food, or the thirsty a drink.
On earth it grew hotter and hotter. The sun burned down so fiercely that the people were fainting in its rays. They could not stop to rest. They were obliged to go on with their work, for they were very poor. As the day passed, the cloud became larger, and it cast a big shadow on the land. She noticed that the people were stopping in the place she shaded. Sometimes they stood and looked up at the cloud, as if they were praying and saying, "Ah, if you could help us!" Her wish to do something for the people of earth was even greater. Now it's number 3.
I will help you, I will, said the cloud, and she began to sink softly down toward earth. But suddenly, as she floated down, she remembered something that she had been told to her when she was a tiny cloud child in the lap of Mother's ocean. It had been whispered that of the clouds, that if the clouds go near earth, they will die. When she remembered this, she held herself from sinking and swayed here and there on the breeze. Thinking. At last, she stood quite still and spoke boldly and proudly. She said, "People of earth, I will help you. Come that way. Come that way. I will help you. Come that way."
The thought made her suddenly marvelously big, strong, and powerful. Never had she dreamed that she could be so big. Like a mighty angel, she expanded above the earth and lifted her head and spread her wings far over the fields and woods. She was so great, so majestic, that people and animals were awestruck at the sight. The trees and the grasses bowed before her, yet all the earth creatures felt she meant them well.
"Yes, I will help you," cried the cloud once more. "I will give my life for you." As she said the words, a wonderful light glowed from her heart, and the sound of thunder rolled through the sky. And a love greater than words can tell filled the cloud. Down, down, close to the earth she swept, and gave up her life in a welcome, healing shower of rain.
That rain was the cloud's great deed. People cheered. "We are blessed. The cloud has rescued us." The earth was wet. There were puddles and shiny leaves. Animals were able to drink from the dry creek bed. Then they saw, as they looked up, that over the whole countryside a great rainbow crossed the sky. Soon that too was gone. But long, long afterward, the people and animals the cloud had saved kept her blessings in their heart. They remembered it every time they saw a rainbow.
Awesome. Thank you for all the volunteers for reading. And I can take sheets if you'd like me to. When we think about the story, there's a lot of history with clouds, and there's even a lot of folk culture
There you
with
go.
clouds.
She's gonna come. There you go.
Oh, thank you so much. So I can think of a few movies off the top of my head that kind of have a ton of clouds in them. One of those movies is Up, where they like to portray all the clouds as animals. And I don't know, show of hands, if anybody's seen Up. It's a pretty lighthearted movie. And we've also got, oh, there was another one. I'm not remembering. Cloudy with a Chance, that was the one, yeah. Any other movies? Cloudy with, that was good, thank you. Hercules, yeah, there's a lot of clouds portrayed in Hercules. I know we've got a lot of other references. Have anybody heard Rain, Rain, Go Away, Come Again Another Day, You Get Your Head Out of the Clouds? Yeah? You got something with clouds? Oh, yeah. Hamilton? I'm sure there's clouds in there.
We just like that one.
That's a good one. And then we've heard maybe Red Sky at Night, Sailor's Delight, Red Sky in Morning, Sailors Take Warning. There's actually a bit of truth to that. When you see the red sky in the morning, often that means that there's storms and there's different weather types coming through towards you. And when you see them at night, they've often passed, and those particles in the clouds are bouncing off those cool light shades that we see. So we see the clouds are portrayed differently in different movies. They could be super lighthearted, or they could kind of put a damper on things. And it could be a gray, stormy day, and we're not thinking of super happy thoughts with that. But we're gonna take one more little stop. We're gonna walk a bit more down the way and stop and look at the lake some more and see the clouds over the lake. And as we're walking, I'd like you to think about your emotions surrounding weather or storms or clouds, and whether that's more of a good emotion or a bad emotion that you're feeling. Emotions coming up as we're walking, thinking about clouds or weather or storms. Sad, yeah. Sad, yeah. Happy. Perfect. Love that. Happy. Yes, we've got quite a wide variety. I know before I got really into clouds and weather and researching all this sort of kind of stuff, it was more of the, oh, there's rain in the forecast, there's clouds in the forecast, it's kind of a wasted day. But when we think about, we see that in the future. We should think about how this gives the chance for the earth to rest and relax. There's no bright sun beating down on the plants. Often that rain will give nourishing effects to the plants and to the creatures that live on the earth. And we can even take a day to have a nice day in the warmth and watch some movies or play some board games, whatever you'd like to do inside. Kind of a rest and relax for everybody. So we're gonna go over kind of how to decipher when you do see clouds on the horizon or weather in the future, kind of how to tell what's gonna be in that and how to decipher those clouds. So when we think about what a cloud is made up of, is it's little tiny raindrops. And those raindrops form around something called a particulate. And a particulate can be anything from sea salt evaporated off the ocean. It could be dust. A lot of the dust that these particulates and the water attaches to are actually from the African Sahara deserts. And they lose about 2 million tons of dust every year, and a lot of that does go into clouds. So we could think also plant matter will create clouds, but when those clouds form, I've got a little bit of a, you can see how that forms that little bit of a cloud that goes, and it's those little particulates of water picking up other stuff in the air. So enough of those form, and then we get clouds. And it's, the bigger the cloud is and the darker the cloud is, the more stuff is going to be in it. So we'll start with the lower level. We've got this green, and usually the green we know is pretty ominous. Green will often mean hail in the forecast. So when you see clouds with green in them, the light refracts differently off of ice particles as opposed to when it refracts off of the water droplets. So these frozen particles will show off a green light. And how these ice chunks actually form is there's a lot of movement up in the clouds and a lot of airflow going around every which way. So when the little water droplet forms, it's this little white water droplet. Let's say it's surrounded by, or it's attached to a little piece of dust. And it's trying to fall from the cloud. And then there's a giant gust of wind, and it picks it back up, and it's still moving around, and it's back up in the cloud, and it gets a little bigger, and it freezes, and it thaws. So many times that however many times it keeps getting pushed around, it keeps growing larger and larger as it refreezes and rethaws, and then we get hail that can be anywhere from tiny little droplets to giant golf ball, softball sized hail chunks. So it's all about those water particles refreezing and thawing and getting pushed around up in that cloud. I've got this next color, the darker blue. It's going to be again that lower level cloud. The darker the blue, the more gray it is, the more water it's going to contain. So when you see those little nimbus clouds, super tall, they can often carry as much as 17.4 million gallons of water. And again, that number means nothing to you. I understand. I was like, okay, big number, cool. That's equivalent to about about 13 Olympic-sized swimming pools of water just hanging out up in the cloud, ready to be dumped down. And clouds can often weigh as much as about 100 elephants if it's that big cumulonimbus cloud. So this dark blue is often going to be in the rain, and sometimes it'll be in snow. And you can tell when the precipitation is falling. If we've seen it out over fields, you can kind of see it going down in lines. It'll be more of like your shades and how you've got your blinds for the water coming down if it's rain. And for snow, it's going to be more of like a fuzzy blanket that you see with softer edges as opposed to those lines coming down with rain that you can see out over the horizon. As we move up in layers, you're going to get a lot lighter, and that's because it's much colder up there. So there's not as much thawed water. It's more of these frozen particulates, these frozen snowflakes or ice crystals that are going to be up there. So there's not as much stuff in it. It's much lighter, and it's much lighter in weight as well. And then we get to those super high clouds that are going to be your Sirius clouds, and those are going to be basically white, sometimes transparent, and they're not going to hold much besides just frozen crystals. Now they could drop down because clouds and rain follows the law of thermodynamics, so it cannot be destroyed, but it can be changed. And I've got a little activity here for everybody. And we do have some clouds, but I've also got some blues. I've got a bunch of paint swatches here. So you want to take some paint swatches and either match them to the sky or match them to the clouds. Whatever one you're feeling. You can take a couple. I've got some lens. Can you match colors pretty well? Yeah?
You picked out for home. Your home.
Get in trouble.
You guys done that?
We've got a lot of
Not yet,
lights.
right?
I had three.
I tried.
You get that one.
Yeah, no, it doesn't usually work out how I want it to. Or I never finish. Well, stand up and you can pick one or two of them. Sky or cloud colors here. You gotta try to find it to match the sky or the clouds if you can.
All right, what are we thinking? You can take a couple if you'd like.
We're gonna go with the gray one?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
See what you can do.
Nice.
Yeah, let's see it.
Match some colors.
Hold it up so you can see.
You got in my hand.
Do you want to give one back?
Match it one.
You got two. That's so funny.
Yeah, so you can hold it up and kind of see if any of the clouds match, or if the sky matches any of the colors. And these paint swatches are super fun, and you can keep them too. So you can match them on any day you like.
See how it's lighter over there? There's a darker up here. They're much lighter over there. You've seen a gray one?
Yeah, some of them have cool cloud names or sky names. This one's called Storms Coming. Gray by me. And you can kind of see, look at, you got a lot of these light clouds. There's not much in these clouds, which is probably for the best so we don't get rained on. Any of them matching up really well? Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, those clouds are pretty light. They're a bit darker on the bottom side. A little bit of a shadow. They got some water up in there. Not a lot. Not enough to drop down on the earth. Nice. Awesome. Matches up the colors. So we've got these cool colors, and we can see, I don't know if any of you have seen some pretty awesome colored sunsets where the light is reflecting off of the clouds and just some crazy colors. I know down in Florida I saw...
Nothing matches the caught in the rain color.
Well, it's good that we're not caught in the rain then. That is probably for the best. Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of different colors in the sky blue, and then also just in the clouds. You can see even other types of clouds that are up there right now. We've got lighter gray, we've got darker gray. And you can kind of tell when they're darker, that one has potential to drop some rain. It would have to drop a little lower in the atmosphere and have to collect quite a few more particles to it. But you've got some cool ways to tell and some awesome colors that these clouds can have. So we'll take a walk back to the pavilion, and then I'll leave you with a couple of things. All right, so I'll leave this up in case you would like to come get a closer look or look at some of the pictures again after it's over. But I'll leave you with a couple of things. When we see rain in the forecast, we can kind of think maybe it's a day for rest and relaxation, or for some inside work. And the earth needs a break too. And it's nice to sit back and smell the rain or listen to the thunder. And we've got a whole lot of pop culture things. We've got, maybe you should go watch Play with a Chance of Meatballs, or Up and see what clouds you can see. Or even just go out and lay in the grass, or don't lay in the grass if you would prefer not to, and look up and see what's up above us instead of looking at our feet when we're walking all the time. And happy Earth Day, and thank you for coming out, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.